It is on your screen.
Organiser, Voice of the Nation. On July 3, 1947, on the verge of India's independence, Organiser was born. 15,000 shareholders raised rupees 4 lakh for Bharat Prakashan Delhi Limited, making it the only media institution not owned by a family or a business house. Organiser conducted the first ever Gallup poll on the burning issue of refugees coming into India post-partition, getting tremendous response. In 1948, brought an unwarranted ban on RSS by a vengeful government, and Organiser too had to close operations. In 1950, in what came to known as the Organiser censorship case, the Supreme Court set aside the provision under which the weekly was asked by the authorities to show its contents before publishing it. Organiser called it a great event. Be it the Praja Parishad Andolan,
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I kindly request everyone to take their seats as we are about to commence today's program. On behalf of Organiser, it is my privilege to welcome each one of you to this very special occasion as we celebrate 80 years of Organiser, 80 years of a media movement. May I also request all our distinguished guests to kindly switch their mobile phones to silent mode and remain seated during the proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, history remembers institutions not merely because they survived time, but because they stood firm when history itself was being written. Some institutions report events, some influence opinions, and then there are institutions that become part of the nation's journey. For 80 years, Organiser has done precisely that. Born even before independent India took its first breath, Organiser witnessed the trauma of partition, reported from refugee camps, challenged censorship, survived bans twice, endured the emergency, and continued to chronicle India's civilizational journey with conviction and courage. The story of Organiser is not merely a story of a publication. It is the story of an idea. The idea that journalism must not merely inform, but also inspire from time to time. The idea that truth deserves a voice, especially when it is inconvenient. And above all, the idea that nations are strengthened by fearless dialogues and responsible journalism. Today, as we celebrate 8 decades of this remarkable journey, we also celebrate every editor, every writer, every reader, and every well-wisher who helped transform Organiser into what it proudly remains today, the voice of the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the 80th Foundation celebrations of Organiser Weekly. A very warm welcome to all our guests, journalists, scholars, diplomats, academicians, public representation, members of the media family, our respected readers, contributors, and of course, all the friends of Organiser. We are deeply honored by your gracious presence. I would request everyone to kindly take their seats. Every auspicious beginning in our tradition starts with invoking wisdom over ignorance and light over darkness. May I now respectfully invite our dignitaries to kindly come forward for the ceremonial lighting of the lamp in front of Ma Saraswati and Bharat Mata. Shri Prafulla Ketkar ji, Shri Kanchan Gupta ji, Professor K.G. Suresh ji, Dr. Bala Shankar ji, Dr. Shashadri Chari ji, I would request all of you to kindly come on the stage for the lighting of the lamp. Shri Arun Kumar Goyal ji, could you please also join our dignitaries on the dais?
दीपज्योति परं ज्योति
दीपज्योति परं ज्योति दीपज्योति जनार्दनः दीपो हरतु मे पापम् दीपज्योति नमोऽस्तु ते शुभं करोतु कल्याणम् आरोग्यं सुखसम्पदः द्वेषबुद्धिविनाशाय आत्मज्योति नमोऽस्तु ते आत्मज्योति प्रदीप्ताय ब्रह्मज्योति नमोऽस्तु ते ब्रह्मज्योति प्रदीप्ताय गुरुर्ज्योति नमोऽस्तु ते.
With this, let's begin our first session. Ladies and gentlemen, the story of Organiser, as I said before, began even before India became independent. It was 1946 when visionary thinkers, including Vasantrao Oak Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji and Madhavrao Mure, conceived the idea of an English language publication that would articulate Bharat's civilizational perspective to the world. And a year later, on 3rd of July 1947, Organiser published its very first issue. Nearly 15,000 shareholders, they came together to establish Bharat Prakashan Delhi Limited, making Organiser perhaps the only media institution of its time owned by society itself, not by any family. During partition, while millions crossed newly drawn borders carrying nothing but hope, Organiser documented
the world's largest democracy, India. The First Amendment is to do with curtailing speech, imposing curbs on free speech. So this is just to make a contrast. A last point which I would like to make, one of the biggest contributions which Organiser made to the world of journalism was Shri K.R. Malkani. He was a polyglot. I mean, he could speak various languages. He was interested in various things. And he was the editor who brought the paper into prominence. And he had a deputy, a very loyal deputy. And that was Shri L.K. Advani. And L.K. Advani was the film critic of on the Organizer. So it gave him 30 rupees per month and also a free ticket to watch all the films that he wanted to watch.
So, Dada, there are very, interesting when we go through those, archives. Of course, the first edition was edited by Mr. A.R. Nair, and he declared the independence with the first edition on 3rd of July, or rather, it was on 16th of August, 1947 as Tejomay Hindu Rashtra. It's a wonderful editorial that is written. And there is immense clarity about who we are as a nation. We are making a new state. India is embarking as an independent state. As far as Rashtra is concerned, we are ancient and we should celebrate it. That is the clear message that Organizer is trying to give. But at the same time, the pain of partition, that is continuously there in this first phase. And there this, interesting questions that Malkani ji asked in every edition, 6 questions he used to put. And in between, after this session, if possible, I would request the kind of cartoons that he has used to describe the situation of Hindus, the policy of Nehru government as far as the refugees from East and West Pakistan are concerned, and what Kanchanda was mentioning about the reasonable restrictions. The reasonable restriction idea was expanded, and one interesting clause, of course, one can understand about the decency and morality and social conduct. One can understand, if you are harming somebody else. The interesting clause that he inserted, and I would like to come to KG on this because the entire CA debate actually is rooted in that particular issue. The government inserted one important section as far as reasonable restriction is concerned, that is friendly relationship with neighboring countries. And he wanted actually to create a ground for Nehru-Liaquat Pact, which was giving assurance for minority protection on each side. And it actually created. Now, KG, when we are seeing this entire discourse on CA and the Muslims in India would lose the citizenship, and, the freedom of media has been curbed in last 10-15 years, and you are not allowed to speak when you can, speak against anybody, whatever you want to, without any substance. So how do you see this journey? You have seen a lot of, many governments with very close quarters. In 1990s, you have seen it very closely. With agencies, you have seen it closely. So how do you see this debate? Has the contours changed or the sides have changed? What has happened?
Thank you so much, Praful. Let me at the outset congratulate you and the team at Organizer for the 80th anniversary celebrations. It has been a remarkable journey. I often say that when you hear the word Organizer, the first thing that comes to your mind is nationalism. Organizer has become synonymous with nationalism. No other, sorry to say, no other publication comes to your mind. And I have been a regular writer for Organizer for a long time. And I can only say that apart from all the, the important critical roles that Organizer has played since its inception, one of the most important roles have been decolonizing the Indian mind. The Bharat Bodh that we are talking about. And I'm really glad to say that wherever I worked, whether at IIMC, at MCU, at India Habitat, I ensure that Organizer is available and accessible to our readers, our students, our teachers. Because I believe that, anybody, even those who necessarily do not subscribe to a certain point of view, may have differences. But if they want an objective voice, then they should read the Organizer. Coming to your question, Praful, I believe that, you at Organizer have also been countering a lot of narratives. Not just grooming a nationalist mindset over the last few decades, but also countering anti-India, anti-Hindu narratives. For example, perhaps today what you see, the new JNU, we have seen the old one. Those who have seen the new JNU should give credit to Organizer for bringing about that change. If the JNU dossiers were not published, the anti-national activities which were happening within the premises of JNU would never have seen the light of the day, and for decades they would have continued with their evil designs.
KG is trying to say a former student of JNU has done that.
So, because he knows the JNU very well, too well. So, that is something. So, this is a journey which hasn't completed. It is on a mission mode. And I have not seen Organizer sparing anybody, And as somebody who has been a regular reader also of Organizer, I can say that whenever any voice, any power has sought to suppress the voice of dissent, the Organizer has taken up those issues. We would always mention, whenever we talk about the infamous emergency, we would talk about Ramnath Goenka and Indian Express. But I think that we need to enlighten, now that we are in our 80th year, the younger generation about the role played by Organizer and the nationalist press at that time, the underground leaflets, the pamphlets that were circulated across the country. We as youngsters had seen that. So, what was that role needs to be incorporated, if not in history textbooks, any student studying media should know about it. That's what I believe in. I also feel that, how that particular, provision that has fueled this. You see, I also believe certainly that freedom does not mean license.
Absolutely.
Freedom of speech is not license to express anything. Undoubtedly. But then, is it subject to national interest or government interest? That is the big question. What is it subservient to? I think that it is important that we understand this basic difference. Because if a provision has been included only to placate or to facilitate an agreement, as has been pointed out here, it is something that we need to ponder over. And perhaps it is time for us to think about abrogating that aspect also. Because it is not the government to decide, what view the media is going to have with regard to a neighboring country. For example, I always cite this example, that there was a media house when the Kulbhushan Jadhav case was happening. That media house, it was a website, it is still there. It actually published a story saying that he was a raw agent. And at the International Court of Justice, the Pakistani lawyer was flashing that particular story and saying that this is not what I am saying or my country is saying, this is what the Indian media is saying. I mean,
Indian media run from somewhere else.
yes.
Funded by US.
Now, doesn't that come under this particular clause? But no action was taken under that clause. So, what is important is that because it is helping the powers that be in building that narrative. So, I think it is very important that today Organiser has taken up this debate, and I hope that this debate is carried forward, not just by Organiser, but in university campuses, academic campuses, and I see many academician friends here, whether it is in the law faculty or in the media faculty. I think it's important that this is widely debated, and we certainly take this up, that what for certain provisions were introduced, and not to talk about the 1975 censorship, which, over 10,000 journalists were put behind the bars, and the kind of actions that were taken, that is history and I think part of the popular folklore now. But these are certain aspects of suppression, some of the initial Supreme Court rulings right from 1950s, which are very important, but which have never been told. And I hope that Organiser can run a series of stories, by people like Kanchanda, who can actually throw more light on this aspect.
So many youngsters who know that 1975, this black first page and besides masthead, everything was in black, that is famously known. But Malkani ji used a different method. He used to submit his entire editorial, entire content to the censor commissioner. Censor commissioner used to cut it. Malkani ji used to put a Caesar on it and writing on it, censor Caesar. That was Malkani ji. And he kept those editorial as it is, the stories as it is, and on blank pages, he used to just place it, censor Caesar. That's all. I think that was more powerful message. But Kanchanda, what KG said, about this, it's a very thin line about the government interest or a national interest. And because you have seen in Bengal, where a cartoon against a chief minister also can put somebody in jail. And still, unfortunately, on real issues, freedom of speech could never become a real debating point in media. So how should we draw this thin line about, what is there in the free speech domain? Because reasonable restrictions are there, and there has to be certain standards as far as reasonable restrictions are concerned. But where are those, lines drawn?
This is a very long drawn debate, long going on debate that is criticizing the government, also criticizing the country. In an electoral democracy, the government represents the country. So, to question the government is perfectly legitimate. But when you attribute things to the government which are not based on facts, on data, then what you are also doing is that you are attributing those things on the country. So it's a thin red line, but professional journalists would know what, or professional writers would know what is anti-government and what is anti-nation. I am not really worried about that now, but my point is very simple. For instance, we have laws on obscenity. We have laws on public order. So you do not need to impose restrictions on free speech to ensure either public order or to control or not have obscenity in the public domain, because the other laws would kick in automatically. You see, Nehru's purpose was, I'm sorry to say this, people keep on saying you are obsessed with Nehru, you are obsessed with Nehru. My family never voted Congress because we are obsessed with Nehru. Nehru hated Bengalis. He thought Bengalis are dark-skinned, therefore they are subhuman, and it was a racist attitude. I can speak to you for hours on that. Nehru's purpose was different. You mentioned relations with neighboring countries. His concern was, okay, I mean, the Liaquat Pact was there, but on China, around March, April 1950, we established relations with China, and immediately Nehru starts working on promoting China on the global stage. Even before any other country had recognized the then regime over there, including pushing China's envelope in the UN. And the then leftists who were aligned with Moscow, and Moscow was not yet aligned with Beijing, they had questioned this motive of his. And why was he trying to do this? And Nehru again felt unnerved because there was opposition from the right in the Congress. Congress, as we know, was a big umbrella party, and there were people on the right over there. And this part of the First Amendment has never been fully explored, because therein lies the root of our problems with China. Because what were we promising them then? Was it reiterated by the undisclosed agreement between Congress and the CPC? We just don't know. Now, the other last point which I wanted to make, everybody is, Organiser, of course, played a sterling role. And then poor Mr. Malkani was picked up and put in jail. Where, of course, the first thing which he did was he made friends of the Shahi Imam. And he said that I used to pull his leg and I used to make him look silly, and he would just keep on pleading with me, "Arey, Zanab, aapko Islam ke bare mein mujhse zyada pata hai, but don't make me look so bad all the time." But the other paper which played a very big role in framing the political debate preceding 1975 was Motherland, and of which Malkani ji was the editor. And some of the finest journalists who came to dominate Indian journalism after emergency, say between 1977 and mid-1980s, were all from Malkani ji's Motherland stable. Whether it was Virender Kapoor, whether it was Kumi Kapoor, all of them, you name them, they had a Motherland connection. They were trained by him. They were from Motherland. And today we talk about the need to look for nationalism. At that time, if you felt that you were a nationalist, that you identified yourself with the Indian nation, then you automatically went and signed up with either the Organiser or the Motherland as a fresh graduate out of college or university. So that was the kind of identification which existed. It's one of the saddest things that that Motherland never surfaced again after the emergency. I wish it had survived, because it was something that people still remember. People my generation or slightly older than me, we still remember that paper. And lastly, what I would also mention is that we have to accept court orders whether we like them or not. So if the court says that no, cannot be done, this cannot be written, you have to accept it. But what Malkani ji did and what you said just now is how to go around the court order and yet make your point and make it in a much more powerful manner than the court or your adversary did. So these are all lessons which we need to remember. And Praful, you should also, try to take this down to youngsters who are from our fold. I know it sounds very bad to say our fold, their fold, your fold. But what I meant is people who are enthusiastic about the nation, about their own identity, people who are confused about their identity. For instance, this first editorial which you mentioned, I think it should be reprinted 1,000,000 times and it should be circulated in schools, in junior schools, so that children learn. Answer this simple question, who are we? Quickly, if you allow me another 10 seconds, as they say in TV debates, Vidya Naipal was here in 2004 to release the Hindi editions of his 2 books, Among the Believers and the other one. And I think they were published by Bharat Prakashan, if I'm not mistaken, or I'm forgetting. So there was a release ceremony where he was present. And in his opening remarks, he says, all my life, I have spent an entire lifetime trying to answer the question, who am I? I was born in Trinidad. I am of Indian origin. I am culturally, civilizationally, I am Indian. Yet I am not an Indian. So who am I? And I find, he says, Naipal says, I find that every Indian I meet is struggling with to answer the same question. Who am I? And this needs to be answered. And it's not only in India. In America also, Americans are still struggling to understand who are they. And therefore, Huntington's book, the 2 books on identity, Clash of Civilizations, and again, I think the second book is called Who Am I? Who are we? Who are we? So this is something which I think we should take seriously. And one of the key takeaways from 75 years of the First Amendment, 50 years of the emergency, and 80 years of the organizer, because they're all interlinked, should be this answering this question with credibility as to who are we.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that clarity, Kanchanda. KG, Kanchanda spoke about 1950s First Amendment, emergency. But after emergency, many things change. Not just in media, but the way governments function, the pillars of, the state machinery, they approached each other. Even the judiciary that used to stand for protection of fundamental rights in the pre-emergency period, that also changed. The primacy of directive principles. Socialism still remained, and suddenly then we see opening up of not just the market, but the media, the mind space. And you have seen that era of globalization very, very closely, the way media. Now in this market-driven media, because, after independence, there was this zeal about independence, reconstructing nation. And so there were many people who in media were actually talking about these debates. In fact, that time when I see Motherland, Kanchanda is talking about, in fact, in 1974, December precisely, Malkaniji's first time warned about similar kind of scenario, emergencies coming, because of which he was actually picked up. Even before emergency was declared somewhere in March, and he was questioned by IB then. But after this 1990s, the way electronic media has come up, the way breaking news culture has come up, anybody is breaking anything in the name of news. So how are we going to deal with this entire delicate debate of freedom of speech on the one hand and still democratic and constitutional responsibilities on the other hand?
Thank you. There have been two factors which have redefined, reshaped the Indian media scenario. Post what you said, the liberalization, privatization, globalization, the LPG as we call it. One is changes in the ownership patterns. Please remember that we are also celebrating 200 years of the first Hindi newspaper in India, the Udant Martand by Pandit Shukla, Jugal Kishore Shukla, in Calcutta in 1826. And this year we are celebrating the 200 years. His motto or credo of the newspaper was Hindustaniyon ke hit het. Whether it was Baba Saheb Ambedkar or whether it was, Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and hundreds of such people. You had Pandit Makhanlal Chaturvedi with his Karamveer. They all were on a mission mode in the sense that they were individually running the newspaper with a mission. Whether it was the liberation of the country or for Baba Saheb it was, the liberation, the social liberation of, Dalits through Mook Nayak and Prabuddha Bharat. But then came the corporatization part, where you rightly said the editorial has been marginalized, or the role of editor. Today, many of the educated people do not know who the editor of, say, the leading papers are. They do not know. And very famously, a very famous newspaper baron had famously said that for me, selling a newspaper is like selling soap. I don't see any difference between that. For them, it is business, pure business. Then came an era where industrial houses created media houses as a cover-up for their misdeeds. And some created media houses to advance their business interests. This was the kind of corporatization that happened, wherein profit rather than national interest or social change, this became the priority. The second major change was technological revolution, wherein we saw radical changes. There has been a democratization and decentralization of content. Concepts like citizen journalism. The people themselves were able to reach out to thousands and lakhs of people, which a small and medium newspaper on its own cannot reach. So, there has been this paradigm shift of both ownership and technology. Now, to navigate this has become pretty complex now, because we are dealing with a flat universe, where, and our own leadership also has taken on to social media in a big way to reach out to the people rather than, approach the so-called traditional media. When we used to study media, at that time traditional media meant puppetry and folk theatre. But today traditional media means the newspaper and television. Nobody talks about them as the modern media. This has been the big change. Now what has happened is that in this scenario, it has gone into the hands of the people. And please remember, we may have this perception that it is in the hands of the common man, but it is not in the hands of the common man. The entire algorithmic thing is controlled by powers outside of the country. Their servers are based out of the country. There has been initiatives like Coup, Zoho, and all these initiatives, but so far not in the manner. And here I must say that one may have very serious differences with their entire system, but the fact that China has developed its own, whether it is GPS or its own Facebook, its own equivalent of the same, somehow with all the software professionals around the world, from Silicon Valley to Bangalore, we have not been able to develop our own servers, our own, in the way some of the countries have been able to. So what is happening is, we talk about data sovereignty. A lot of this data is today our own data, our personal data, our national data. Everything is stored abroad. Even today, you would be surprised to know that many government officers and government, offices still prefer the Gmail rather than the nic.in. So that kind of dependency has been created. Now, in this scenario, how much and how do we do it? How do we regulate this whole thing? Control certainly is a no after emergency. But regulation, and how do we regulate it? There have been the IT Act and all that. Eminent lawyers are here. They will be able to explain it further. But at the end of the day, can you control it? That becomes the big question. And here comes two important aspects to my, to how to deal with it. That was your question. One is, certainly regulation has to be there. And secondly, there has to be awareness. You call it media literacy, you call it digital literacy, from whatever name you call it. People have to be made aware, because right from a 5-year-old child to a 95-year-old, senior citizen, they are all consuming media like anything. There is infodemic, an overdose of information where we are unable to distinguish between right and wrong information. False narratives are being peddled from across the borders. We saw it. This crisis is real. We saw it during the farmers' protests. How proxy handles were peddling a separatist narrative. Perhaps one of the factors that for the first time the government decided to, withdraw rather than pursue with it, because a separatist narrative was sought to be created. Now, in this scenario, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. So whether it is right from the school curriculum to universities to professional organizations, there has to be a massive media literacy campaign, including incorporating it in the school curriculum. People have to be made aware of media is no more an isolated thing. Media is an integral part of our lives. It has come into our drawing rooms. It has come into our bedrooms. So we need to be aware of it. Second, as I said, regulation. And the third is that we need to have our own international platforms. Russia has Russia Today. China has China Central TV. France has France Today. Americans have the CNN. You name it. I think that despite the fact that we have made attempts like DD India and stuff like that, we are still looking at the world through the Western prism and not the Indian prism. We are not able to provide to the world the Indian perspective. Imagine, just weeks back, our television channels, you mentioned about television channels, they were referring to West Asia as Middle East. It is not Middle East for us. Even today, the protests in Gilgit-Baltistan, Muzaffarabad and the northern areas are put in the foreign pages of the newspaper, whereas the Indian Parliament unanimously, not once but thrice, has declared the entire Jammu and Kashmir as an integral part of India. Yet we report that in the foreign pages. Why? I think that we need to create this kind of an international platforms which should be able to not just cater to the Indian diaspora, but also we have, when we are looking at Viksit Bharat 2047, when we are looking at a superpower India, it is very important that the Indian narrative is the way through an Indian perspective has to be shared with the global audience. We need to work in that direction.
Thank you, KG. I'm sure this debate can go on, and this is a very very delicate, because if I ask Kanchanda, whether 61 eminent people should write a letter to India and Pakistan prime ministers, suddenly he would say they should be kicked out, and suddenly his free speech stand would change. And this can happen with anybody. I'm not talking just about Kanchanda. This can happen with anybody of us. When it is, this free speech is a very, very convenient tool. When it comes to not just the countries, when it comes to India, Pakistan, when it comes to religion, when it comes to caste, when it comes to language. But what I personally feel, that if there is a clarity and consensus, as I started by saying, that who we are as a nation, as a journalist, facts are sacrosanct. But there will be always personal views. Objective news is a facade. Organiser chose ideological journalism out of conviction, not out of compulsion. Anybody can have ideological position and stand by it. The question is, when you take a so-called independent, non-partisan media platforms or journalists, and then you choose to, be on one side. And I'll not name the media, it's not appropriate for me, but a very, very senior journalist going in the Communist Party's party congress, inaugurating the, their exhibition, and still that platform is called a very independent platform. While Organiser, accidentally, Kanchanda started by saying our and yours. Actually, Organiser, Chariji would speak about this during emergency, or even immediately after emergency, when there were not many platforms available. Many opposition leaders actually found Organiser as a convenient platform. We, all of us, tried to give space to all kinds of voices. They are afraid to write for Organiser. I know, I'll not name, but very, very senior leader, one from Congress party and one from Communist party, after writing an article, withdrew it, saying that, I know you will not make any change, you will not change my basic argument, but my party will question me. So please don't publish. So Organiser never called it a, RSS mouthpiece. RSS never called it, this is our mouthpiece. I enjoy a complete editorial freedom. My managing director is sitting here, and RSS General Secretary will come next. But I can assure you, I enjoyed my editorial freedom the best possible way in last 12, 13 years. Nobody ever questioned me why you are taking up this issue. And still people label me as a, mouthpiece of somebody. But that is the iron. That is the way we have to deal with it. Somebody else called us mouthpiece, and we are dealing with this. They have, freedom of speech. But I have given a couple of notices on this. We don't, yes, we have ideological position and we stand by it. We are not ashamed of it. But why you are, people who are not even responsible for my editorial take have been questioned on the issues that I have picked up. That is the only thing. But this is a very fascinating debate, and I'm sure in coming days I'll continue this with both Kanchanda and KG. But I'll stop here because we have very, very short window for this entire thing. Both the editors are my predecessors are here. They are going to speak about their experiences with Organiser. Then family members of former editors are here. From Mr. A.R. Nayar's family, Malkaniji's entire family is there. Pratibha Advaniji would be coming. So she is already here. So we have to, felicitate them. We have to, and then Vice President would also, Honorable Vice President would be coming at 5:50. So before that, I want to have a chance to listen to the former editors and the family members. So I would stop this session here. Thank you, Kanchanda, and we will continue this conversation. Thank you, KG. It's always a pleasure. Over to you, Sonu.
Thank you so much, Prafulla sir. Thank you so much, Kanchanji. Thank you so much, Professor K.G. Sureshi. I would request Prafulla sir to be kindly seated on the stage so that we can start the next session. Thank you so much. Please give a huge round of applause for both our guests. So, over the last 1 hour, we have revisited not merely the constitutional dimensions of free speech, but also its moral responsibilities. As Organiser completes its 80 remarkable years, this conversation about the freedom of speech is sustained not merely by guarantees, but by institutions like Organisers as well. But every institution has two stories. One is written in headlines, the other is written by people. If the first session celebrated Organisers' ideas, the second celebrates the individuals who nurtured those ideas across generations. And this is the title of our beautiful second session, My Days with Organiser, the editor's take. And behind these 4 words lie decades of newsroom stories, editorial decisions, historic movements. So without wasting any more time, let me introduce my first speaker. He is someone whose association with Organiser goes far beyond the designation of an editor. He is recognized across the country as an author, a political thinker, a commentator on national affairs. Readers across the country particularly look forward to his celebrated column, Neighborhood Watch. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Seshadri Chariji, the former editor of Organiser.
Ideas shape nations, and some individuals dedicate their lives to shaping those ideas. Shri Seshadri Chariji is one such distinguished public intellectual. A former editor of Organiser, strategic affairs expert, and respected commentator on governance, foreign policy, and national security, he has remained an influential voice in India's intellectual landscape for decades. He is the executive director of the Forum for Strategic and Security Studies and the Secretary General of the Forum for Integrated National Security. It is a privilege to welcome Shri Seshadri Chari back to the publication that he once led as we celebrate Organiser's journey of 80 remarkable years.
Joining Dr. Chari on the stage is a former editor who represents another important chapter in Organiser's journey. During these years, Organiser successfully navigated this challenging landscape where preserving the principles on which it had been founded was changing with technology. Please welcome Dr. R. Balashankarji on the stage. He is a former editor. Please give a huge round of applause.
Dr. R. Balashankar, a scholar, an author, a journalist, and above all, a thoughtful interpreter of India's civilizational journey. Dr. R. Balashankar has spent decades contributing to journalism, governance, and public policy through his writing and research. During his tenure as editor of Organiser, he strengthened its intellectual foundations and enriched its engagement with contemporary national issues. Before and after his tenure at Organiser, he contributed extensively to mainstream media as a writer and columnist, with work appearing in publications like The Week, The Financial Express, and The Indian Express. We are honored to welcome Dr. R. Balashankar, former editor of Organiser, back to the publication's 80th Foundation Day celebrations.
Prafulla sir, I would request you to kindly take the session from here.
Yes. It is always a, challenge for a current editor to, to deal with the predecessors. And this is true with any media house. But I deliberately chose that each and every person associated with Organiser should be contacted and called to, in this celebration. And Chariji was very, very graciously helpful in this. Both these editors, before this there was Mr. V.P. Bhatia or Malkani ji had a long stint, Advani ji had a stint first as a sub-editor, then assistant editor, then editor in charge. But all of them had, their own experiences, their own pressure of anecdotes associated with it. So, first, I would request Sheshadri Chariji, who was editor in the most fascinating period of 1990s, when Ayodhya agitation was at its peak. So, Chariji, I would request, your take on how do you see this organizer journey and how has been your association with Organiser. So, whichever way you are comfortable.
Thank you, Prafullaji. It was very, it was a warm and a great pleasure when we met some weeks back, 2 weeks back, in an event. Prafulla told me about this event. So I suggested that the event is okay, but it is better that we have a session where we can have older people from people who have been associated with the Organiser for a long time. It is in that idea that he suggested that of the two surviving editors, former editors, both should speak about their experiences. Sometimes it becomes difficult. We all know about a journalist who wrote a book on former Prime Minister. The title of the book suits me the most. Accidental editor. Because I was not supposed to be the editor. I was a reader of Organiser, of course. I used to read Organiser. I was in Mumbai at that time. But when I was in Mumbai and reading Organiser, it was still Bombay. So, and although my mother tongue is Tamil, by virtue of being in Mumbai, I could read, write and speak Marathi also. And we had a very interesting journal in Marathi called Vivek. It is still there, of course. So we used to always say that we have in a place like Mumbai, when it's a cosmopolitan place, why don't we have a English journal? Of course, we knew about Organiser, but we couldn't get enough number of copies of Organiser. We didn't know the problems at that time. So we started a magazine, Vivek in English, and I started editing it. I was a pracharak of RSS, so we brought out a few copies, I think 7 or 8 editions, I think. And one day, I got a call from our Karyalaya Pramukh in Navyug Nivas. In Grant Road, there is a office, RSS office. Unlike the huge mansion here, it was a flat. And the name of the building was Navyug Nivas, therefore it was called Navyug Nivas Karyalaya. There was another theatre called Naz, and there was an office in front of Naz. So it is called Naz Karyalaya. And this Navyug Nivas also was opposite theatre. Interestingly, several RSS offices are facing theatres, including the Delhi one. There was a Naz theatre opposite the present office, Chendewala. Same in Kolkata also. So they said, कार्यालय प्रमुख साइड हमारे चमनलाल जी और भाऊराव देवरस आए हैं एंड दे वांट टू मीट यू. So I went and met them. And when I went there, Bhaurav Devaras was sitting and Chamanlalji was sitting, and in front of them there was this English copy of Vivek. So I knew I am in for trouble. This is my last. Very soon a obituary can be written. Because pracharaks are not supposed to do any extracurricular activity. So I thought I am going to get it today. So even before they could ask me something, I touched that copy and said, ये ऐसे ही हमने किया है, अभी हम बंद कर रहे हैं. So भावरा जी said, क्यों बंद कर रहे हैं? ये अच्छा काम कर रहे हो. I said, नहीं, आगे नहीं करेंगे, बंद कर रहा हूँ. I was still feeling guilty. As a pracharak, I am not supposed to do all these things. I am supposed to look after Shaka and all that. He said, नहीं, have you written all these things? I said, yes. Your English writing is good. I said, I didn't know what to say. In fact, I used to teach Hindi in Mumbai. I am a Sahitya Ratna in Hindi. I am not English educated. So when he said, यही काम आप दिल्ली में आके क्यों नहीं करते हैं? I didn't know what to do. He said, ठीक है, आप आइए, दिल्ली आइए. We'll speak about it. I said, fine. I didn't know what to say, and our Pranta Pracharak was there. He said, they must have spoken something, and then it was decided that I will go. But then very unfortunately, after about a month or so, Bhauravji passed away. So when Bhauravji, after that, I forgot about it because I was not supposed to tell anything about anybody, and I don't know whom Bhauravji has said about all these things. So I just kept quiet. Then after some time, I was sent to Delhi for another work which did not materialize. Since not many people are privy to this and it need not be openly said, that particular aspect of that work was not given to me, so I came back. Then after sometime in June 1992, in the meantime, this Ram Janmabhoomi issue had started, so I went as a car sevak. So I was again called to Delhi. Our Pranta Pracharak told me that you have to go to Delhi, you have to meet. So there again, when I came, in that old Jandewala office, there were all our adhikaris were sitting. Raju Bhaiya ji was there, Sudarshan ji was there, Sheshadri ji. And in that same hall, VP Bhatia, our former editor of Organiser, was also there. So Raju Bhaiya ji told me that आपको Organiser का काम करना है. I thought I have to do something like distribution of Organiser and all that. I said, हाँ करेंगे. तो माननीय सुदर्शन जी बताएंगे आपको क्या करना है, और फिर भाटिया जी भी हैं, सो आप लोग बात कर लीजिए. I said, fine. Even then I thought I am supposed to look after the distribution work of our Organiser. But that used to be a huge problem. People used to complain, हमको Organiser नहीं मिलता है. Then Sudarshan ji said, आप कब से आ सकते हैं? I said, आ सकते हैं मतलब क्या? नहीं, आपको हम भाटिया जी की उम्र काफ़ी हो गई है और तबीयत भी ठीक नहीं रहती है, he is unwell. So you have to take over as editor. That was the shock for me. It took me almost 5-10 minutes to come out of the shock. editor, I am not even English educated. I have not written a single postcard in English. So I didn't say anything. And then in the same evening, Bhattiaji was going home. So he gave me a huge file, about 7-8 files he gave. So these are all copies for the future. So he said, I'm thinking of this issue next week and this next week. He used to bring out edition from home also sometimes because very unwell. I didn't even know what to do. Then I went and told Sudarshan ji that, it's quite a shock for me. I never thought I'm going to be the editor. I thought I'm going to do the distribution work of Organiser. He said, नहीं आपको संपादक करना है, वो ठीक है, आप सीख लेंगे, कोई बात नहीं. आप तो अंग्रेजी अच्छा लिखते हैं और बाकी हम लोग हैं. Although he said हम लोग हैं, I know, later on I came to know what is the meaning of हम लोग हैं. हम लोग हैं लेकिन कभी हमको आके पूछना नहीं क्या है. So then I said, at least I need some time because I was a pracharak and I had nothing to, I had just 2 sets of clothes. So I said, I'll have to go back to Mumbai and I didn't tell them bring my dictionary because it was there already. So I had to go back and tell my people that I am going to Delhi. So, ठीक है. So on 1st August 1992, I came to Delhi as editor of Organiser. But my name was not printed as editor on 1st August because I said I'll start from Vijayadashmi issue. That will be my first issue as editor. So Bhattiaji's name was still published as editor. And then before I left Mumbai, I got a small postcard from Bapurao Lele. Sudarshan ji had spoken to Bapurao Lele and another pracharak, very senior pracharak from Mumbai, Maharashtra, Shivaraj Telang. He had also told Bapurao Lele that our one pracharak is coming as editor. He doesn't have any experience. Of course, he didn't tell me that, but he wrote in that card. इसको कुछ लिखना विखना कुछ आता नहीं है, जरा संभाल लेना. So Bapurao Lele wrote a letter to me, postcard, saying that since you are coming by Rajdhani, I will come and pick you up from the station. So he came to the station. It was heavily raining. And then he said, before you go to Jandewala, एक छोटा program करना है. So imagine, after overnight journey, you get down from the station, from the train, you are met by somebody, he says, you come out, get into an auto rickshaw, and then he said, there is a small event today which we have to do, then we will go to Jandewala. I said, fine. So from there we went to, there is a small Maharashtra school near Jandewala. I don't know if it is still there. And there is a Nutan Maharashtra school. And there is a statue of Lokmanya Tilak. And every year on 1st August 1920 is the Punya Tithi of Lokmanya Tilak. Lokmanya Tilak passed away on 1st August 1920. So every year on 1st August, a very well-known Congress leader at that time, he is also no more now, Vasantrao Sate, he used to garland that statue and a small speech. So that was the program, and even before I went to Jandewala or Organiser office, I was the chief guest of that event. There were some 7 or 8 people. All of them had umbrella. I was the only one who did not have an umbrella. And I had no luggage as a pracharak also. And I didn't know what to speak. I don't even remember what I spoke. Then after that, Vasantrao Sate also came with us. Now imagine in 1992, a Congress leader coming along with Bapurao Lele to Jandewala. But he didn't wait for long. He came there. And then because I could speak Marathi, then we spoke in Marathi, and Bapurao Lele also could speak Marathi. So it was a Marathi conversation. And then he asked me so many things about Nasik. Not many people know that Vasantrao Sate is a Swayamsevak from Nasik. So after 1948-49, he discontinued with RSS. But anyway, he remembers all those things. So this was my introduction to Organiser. So that is why I always say, like we had an accidental Prime Minister, Organiser had an accidental editor. So, but then so many things happened and great memories are there. There were really so many people to come to my rescue. And then people who were part of Organiser right from the beginning. There was one Dadwalji. He is also no more now. He was in Kodak company at that time in 1948-49. And Vasantrao Oak also came. Actually, the idea of Organiser started with these people, Vasantrao Oak, Dadwalji, and I don't remember the third name. So they all came together and they thought of putting it into practice. When it was decided that we should have an English weekly, these are the people who came and did the spade work. Madharavji was also there in that meeting. But the actual bringing out of the paper and everything was given to these people, and it was started in the office of Dawn. And Dawn was published from Latif Press. And then after partition, Dawn went back. And when Dawn went back to Karachi, the owner of the Dawn said, they took a house of a Hindu refugee from Karachi who came to Delhi. So they said, we are taking that house, so you take our office. That is how Organiser started in, at that time, the office of Dawn. Later on it was still Latif Press. Yeah. I think after the ban, when we restarted, it became Hindustan Press. Bharat Bhushan ji was there, I think. Brij Bhushan ji. So this was the history. And I didn't know. So the first thing I did was to meet for the both former editors. So Bhatia ji, of course, stopped coming. After that, I went and spoke to Malkani ji one day. So I met him and I told him about all these things. Of course, Malkani ji gave me huge lot of advice on how to write, how to formulate, printing, so many problems. And he told me about so many problems also, of course. I am not going to tell you any of those problems now. They are all too personal and very of great strategic importance, which the present editor is not going to face probably. But it was there. So many issues. And he saw my editorial also, the first editorial. He said, it's very good. But when he said very good, I knew how it is. Because Malkani ji will never give a certificate to anybody like that. So I told him. Then he said about an author who went to a publisher and gave his book, his manuscript. So after 1 week, the publisher called him and said, your manuscript is very good. He said, what is original is not good, and what is good is not original. So then I knew when he said very good what it means. So I didn't say anything. Then he told me, there is a dictionary in Organiser. I said, yes. Where is it? I said, it is there in the library. He said, no. It should be on your table. I said, yes, sir. And you know why it should be on your table? Huh? That's how you used to say, speak. You know why it should be on your table? Huh? I said, I should refer to it. He said, no. You should never use a word which you have to refer to the dictionary. That is why it should be on your table. I said, yes, sir. It was my first lesson that he gave. And then he said, कहाँ रहते हो? I said, झंडेवाला में रहता हूँ. कहाँ झंडेवाला में रहते हो? I said, ऊपर वो सूर्य कृष्ण जी के कमरे में. I said, क्यों? I didn't know. There was no answer for क्यों. I said, आप कैसे जाओगे? I had no answer. I said, ठीक है. So he left from, he was in BJP at that time. So he dropped me at Jandewala. And then I requested him that why don't you come up, Raju Bhaiya ji is there, we can meet. So he came up, met Raju Bhaiya. After he left, Raju Bhaiya ji told me one thing, which I still remember. He said, आपने बहुत बड़ा काम कर दिया. जब से ऑर्गेनाइजर छोड़े, उसके बाद ये पहली बार ये झंडेवाला आ रहे हैं. That was Raju Bhaiya's comment. So I think this is one of my contributions. Otherwise, as far as journalism and all is concerned, there is not much to write home about. I don't claim anything. So this was some of those things. Every day was an incident. Every day was a great experience. And then the first time when I started working as editor, Raju Bhaiya ji called our manager, because I was at that time I was general secretary of BJP in Maharashtra. As a pracharak, I was handed over to BJP, so I was there. So I had a vehicle of course, BJP vehicle of my own, and then our BJP treasurer of Maharashtra gave me 500 rupees. He said, since you are going to Delhi, आपके पास कुछ पैसा होना चाहिए, रख लीजिए. But I didn't spend it. After I came, I returned it to them. Then Raju Bhaiya told the manager, Batra ji was the manager at that time, I think. Satyadev Batra. Batra ji called. He said, देखिए इनको इधर उधर जाना पड़ेगा कहीं दिल्ली में, प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस वगैरह में, तो इनके पास आप एक 100 रुपया दे दीजिए खर्चे के लिए. बाकी रोटी वोटी तो झंडेवाला में खा लेते हैं, और जाने आने के लिए एक साइकिल भी जरूर दे दीजिए. So I became an editor of Organiser with one cycle and 100 rupees. But when I came out of Raju Bhaiya's room, our manager told me, ये लोग ना बहुत पुराने किस्म के लोग हैं. आजकल 100 रुपये से क्या होता है, आप 200 रुपया रखिए. So I must confess to the income tax department that I started working with 200 rupees. But that is not the only part of it. In 2004, I was again transferred back to BJP. At that time, Balashankar was to take over as editor. But then we had gone for an election. So, from 2003 December onwards to 2004, I think April or May you took over. My name still appeared as editor. But to be on the safe side, I wrote a small letter of demitting office. So I said it was a great experience, this and all that. By that time the manager had changed. A new manager had come. He said, ये क्या है? I said, हमारा resignation letter समझिए या demitting office letter है. इसको क्या करना है? I said, आप acknowledge कर लीजिए. नहीं वो भी आप लिख दीजिए ना. So I wrote a letter. Thank you for demitting office. It was a great pleasure. He said, अभी इसको क्या करना है? I said, आप फाइल में रख दीजिए. After 15 minutes, the accountant came and said, सर इनका फाइल ही नहीं है, तो ये कहाँ रखेंगे? तो मैंने कहा एक नया फाइल लाइए और उसमें रख दीजिए. Then he said, there is a problem. इनको हमने अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर ही नहीं दिया है. ओह सर, तो 12 साल संपादक रहे विदाउट अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर. इधर नहीं कुछ लिखिए. फिर मैंने कहा एक अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर दे दीजिए. Then the accountant came again. He said, सर अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर नहीं दे सकते हैं क्योंकि इनको हमने सैलरी नहीं दिया है, पर अभी अगर देंगे तो 12 साल पहले से अकाउंट खोलना पड़ेगा, वो सब मुश्किल है. तो मैनेजर कॉल्ड मी, ही सेड, चारी जी आप एक काम करिए ना, ये आप दोनों लेटर ले लीजिए. So officially, let me tell
on the
Praful Ketkar, I have not resigned because I am still the editor.
I accept. I accept. You were not appointed. You have not resigned. So you are, and all of us accept that, perhaps and many people in media, as they used to call it, it is Malkani ji's paper. So it is eternal legacy. So whether you are appointed or I am appointed doesn't make much difference. Balaji, we have very less time, but we would be very keen to listen to your days with Organiser. How has been your experiences? Because before that you have been in professional journalism, then you were with the ministry, with Murli Manohar Joshi ji, and then you came to Organiser. So your journey was little different from either Chari ji or myself. Both of us can claim that we are accidental journalists. But you had a journalistic experience in it. So how do you see your journey?
Thank you all. First of all, I'm very glad to be here. This is one of the most eventful and wonderful evenings that we can think of. And I congratulate Organiser editor Praful Ketkar for making this opportunity, because I think this is the first ever biggest Organiser event that I have witnessed. And it is marvelous in the sense that, see, as Chariji was saying, the Organiser always was known for, very miserly, very small things, very small things. So now this is a big event, and Prabhuji has made it impossible. And I am congratulating him for this, and for celebrating the 80 years of Organiser. I am again congratulating him. And also, this is a wonderful event that he has made. And also, there are two things that Prabhuji has done, which we could not do because for a long time, from a tabloid, we have been debating. Charji was also debating, I was also debating to make it into a magazine format and make it more reader-friendly. We could not do it. We have been formulating many ideas, but we could not do it. And he has brought it online also. So Organiser is now easily reachable, easily readable. A lot of people are reading it. And I also know that he is working in the most difficult times in Organiser history. Because we have all been in the opposition, no? It is very easy to create narrative and generate debate and criticize the Prime Minister, do anything that you want. And you can abuse the Prime Minister, you can call him any name. And Malkaniji was famous for that. Once he said, get out lady, don't sin anymore. That was one of his editorials. So that kind of editorials, and now Prabhuji has to think thrice. I don't know whether it will be easy for him to write an editorial. And I was working in a very interesting time because it was 2024 to 2014. That means the most brilliant time in our history, Lot of scandals, lot of things, you have a nominate Prime Minister, you have de facto Prime Minister, you had the Nehru family totally controlling the country, and also de-Hinduizing everything. Even to be a cabinet minister, there was a time, there has to be a tag. If you are a very good Hindu from a traditional background, you will not be a cabinet minister. You select, I had one cover story in Organiser when I was there. So the title was this: every cabinet minister, either he has a Christian wife or a Muslim wife, or he has a daughter married to, or a son married to. This was the kind of thing. If you take the history of all the profile of the ministers during Manmohan Singh's government. So it was a wonderful time. And to begin with, I was with Dr. Murli Manohar Joshi as advisor. In fact, I had two stints in Organiser. One was a sub-editor. When Malkanji was there, Patiaji was there, Baturaji was there. I was very lucky. I had the training of all of them. And for Organiser, as far as I am concerned, it was an emotion, it was a nostalgia, it was inspiration, because from student days, Bhaskar Raoji, our Pranta Pracharak, Madhavji, Parameshwaranji, they will all say, you have to read Organiser if you want to understand the organization. And it was a very fond thing, because by post we used to get Organiser. And even if I was not getting in the college days, one day it was late. We used to go and quarrel in the post office because we used to think there was a conspiracy to deliver Organiser late. That was the kind of fondness. And then when Motherland started, I started subscribing to Motherland from the first day. And we are getting Motherland, it's a daily, but in a bundle, a weekly, it will come. And I used to read that. So that was the kind of fondness or the nostalgia that we had for Organiser. And Malkanji means, he was an icon. For all of us, for journalism students, and also for Swayam Sevaks, Malkanji meant everything that is journalism. And he was the forthright, he was so forceful, his English was fantastic, and he was afraid by the government of India like anything. Indira Gandhi used to read everything that he wrote, and she used to hate it. And she used to there was a story that when we came to Delhi, I used to hear that the emergency was because of Malkaniji. And then when the Janata Party split, there was a big story going around that because of Organiser, the party split. So these are long stories, but I'm not going into it. My days in Organiser, in fact, when I came there, I had the good fortune, H.V. Sheshadriji was there. He was guiding, and I made a big mistake in the sense. I made a list of things. I said, Sheshadriji, I want these things to be done. So there were so many things, to modernize and to give good ideas and all those things I had. So Sheshadriji said, hasten slowly. So I said, hasten slowly means how long I am going to be here? I said, he said, he will be there till your retirement. But don't be in a hurry. Nobody will like it. The management is very slow. And we have a lot of resource crunch. So then we decided to create some resources. So I brought out some specials. The very idea was to generate resources. 6, 7, good specials were organized. We had, one on Vasundhara Raji Sindhya, then again a second one on Vasundhara Raji, one on Narendra Modi ji, one on Yadurappa ji, and then one on Chhattisgarh, Raman Singh ji. Like that we had specials in between, so that to generate some resources for Organiser. So like that it went on. But the interesting part about the whole thing was that the Sangh leaders were very kind. Our Dattadhara Hosbole, who was a very senior man at the time, he used to simply drop in. Without any announcement, he will come. But, yes. So Dattaji, so it was wonderful that Dattaji will come. He will suddenly come, knock the door and come in, and he will give some advice. He will sit for 1 hour, have some tea and go. And we had Madan Das ji at the time when I went to Organiser to take over. Madan Das ji came and blessed me. He said, he made me sit on the chair and said, this is the editor's chair, you sit here. So he made me sit there. Sheshadriji was of course there for advice. And then Suresh Soniji was there. Bhaiyaji Joshi was there. And then of course, many occasions we had very frank and very beautiful discussions how to run the Organiser with Mohan Bhagwatji. Then he was Sarkari Vaha. Later he became Sarsanga Chalak. So like that, I can say during the years I was in Organiser, I never felt any constraint as an editor, in the sense the editorial freedom was totally there. Of course, financial constraint was there. There was a restriction, and I wanted to make Organiser a big platform for young journalists to come there and make it a career option. And that was difficult because our salaries were very, very low. And then I wanted some other things, to modernize it in a way that he has done, to make it a weekly, a magazine format. That also we could not do. But Organiser was noticed in a big way. That was a satisfaction. One day when Advanji met me, he said, "Aapne jaan bhook diya." So I was very happy about it. I said, then आप बीच में तो लिखे एक column लिखे, because he used to write a political column regularly. So when I requested, he said, नहीं बालाशंकर, मेरे को ज़्यादा time नहीं मिलता है, कभी कभी मैं लिखेंगे. And I was very happy. He has been writing many columns at the time. Of course, Pratibhaji also wrote few columns on film and all that were very popular. But later she refused to continue the writing. And the interesting part is, when we were having this Organiser, and it was noticed in the political circuit, Manini Chatterjee, who was a senior journalist in the Indian Express, she started a column, View from the Right. She twice told me she could not carry the column once in a while, because of she went on leave or some problem. And on both the occasions, she got a call from the PMO asking what happened to that column, because the Prime Minister is regularly reading it. That was the kind of impact whatever we had, because we were always only criticizing the Prime Minister. We have been anti-Prime Minister, and we have been very, in fact, I will not use such words now. Those days, in Organiser, writing anything and everything was,
UPA government gave those opportunity.
It was a great fun. So you can write anything. And of course, criticizing Sonia Gandhi was a great fun again. So that was the time. But the UPA government used to take note of it. And the Prime Minister was regularly reading it, means that was a big compliment.
Thank you, Balaji. I know it is very nostalgic, and I also would like to listen, and we will continue this conversation, I assure you. But because Honorable Vice President has already started and his security has already reached, so we will close this session here. I thank both the editors, former editors, predecessors of mine, and we really wanted to listen to, perhaps maybe time permits, I will try to organize something outside. Pratibhaji is here, Vikram Malkani ji is here, Vijay Lakshmi Nair ji is here. So they all carry some memory about Organiser. We will stop this conversation here, and we will have a small documentary. Meanwhile, this arrangement will change. Manya Dattaji is already here, and within 5 to 7 minutes, Honorable Vice President is about to reach. Thank you, Balashankar ji. Thank you, Chari ji.
I would request everyone else to be kindly, please be seated. Do not move around in the auditorium. Meanwhile, I would request the AV team to kindly play the documentary of Organiser.